Greetings to my students in Jesus, the Focus of Scripture. For this fall session 2, we are approaching the end of week 5 with 2 weeks left in the course. I wanted to touch base with you here at the end of week 5 to encourage you to keep going. You're doing great work in the discussion topics and on your papers. I want to thank one of your classmates, they know who they are, for asking me if I had any examples of the final assignment for this course, the parable retelling. And actually I don't, but what I do have is an excellent example of the kind of thing that we're looking for from the preaching of one of my favorite ministers and one of the most influential ministers in the church in the 20th century, Dr. Fred B. Craddock. Fred Craddock was a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. He's also a New Testament scholar. He taught at several places, but ended up at Emory University at the Candler School of Theology, where he was a professor of preaching. When he retired from Emory, he moved up into the hills of North Georgia into a little place between Ellijay and Ball Ground, Ellijay and Blue Ridge, called Cherry Log. And there he founded, with much help, the Cherry Log Christian Church. And during his lifetime, he always hosted preaching workshops, one in the fall and one in the spring. His heart was to help Appalachian pastors with their preaching. He was originally from Humboldt, Tennessee. He was kind of returning to familiar territory. So the other thing that Dr. Craddock did there was he established the Craddock Center, which was a parachurch organization which assisted with the people in need, was very much interested in helping kids in school to read and other ministries like that. A lot worth checking out. Dr. Craddock passed away a few years ago, but he has left a legacy of ministry. If you've never heard of him, I would encourage you. There are a few videos of him on YouTube. Just search Fred Craddock. But what I'm going to do today is, in reference to this assignment, and I don't want to take too long, is I'm going to read you one of the stories out of a book called Craddock Stories, which has been in print for quite some time. But he was a master storyteller, and in his sermons, one of the ways he drew out the meaning of the text was to tell stories. And in many of these sermons, he would do this very thing, this retelling of a story. And this one focuses on the prodigal son. All right. So I'm just going to read it to you. And the idea would be that if you were doing a video, this is the kind of thing that you would do for this assignment. So let me begin. I've told some of my friends what a shocking thing it was to discover that I had not really heard the story of the prodigal son when I preached those sermons about his coming from the far country, about them bringing the ring and the robe and killing the fatted calf. Then they bring the musicians, and there's a party, and there's music and dancing and all of that. I preached that sermon as though this was the wonderful, natural, easy, right thing to do. I had never thought about that party until a family up the street divorced and left 3 or 4 youngsters, girls, one of them attractive, prematurely mature, and about 14 years old. She was truant at school, into marijuana, always in trouble, always up before the judge, chasing around and hanging on the tail end of every motorcycle that went roaring through the neighborhood. She finally was so truant and so involved in misdemeanors that the judge said, "You're going to the reform school in southern Oklahoma." She was sent away to a detention home for girls. About the 4th or 5th month that she was there, she gave birth to the child she was carrying. She was 15 at the time. Word came to the neighborhood some months afterward that she was coming home. Would she have that baby with her? Is she really coming home back to our neighborhood? The day we heard she was to come, all of us in the neighborhood had to mow our grass. We were out in our yards mowing our grass and watching the house. She didn't show, nobody came, and we kept watching the house and mowing the grass. I was down to about a blade at a time, watching the house, when a car pulled in the driveway. And out steps, it's Kathy. She has the baby. She brought home the baby. People in the house ran out and grabbed her and took turns holding that baby. And they were all laughing and joking. Then they went in. Another car pulled in. And then another car pulled in. And another car pulled in. They started parking in the street. You couldn't have gotten a Christian car down the street, just cars on either side. And they're all gathering there, Suddenly I got disturbed and anxious and went in my house. It suddenly struck me. What if one of them saw me down in the yard and said, "Hey, Fred, she's home and she has the baby. We're giving a party and we'd like for you and Nettie to come." Well, I've got a lot of papers to grade and all. Would I have gone? If you lived next door to the prodigal son's father's house, would you have gone over to that party? It's easier to preach on the prodigal son than it is to go to that party. All right. That's just one of the many wonderful stories that Dr. Craddock shared throughout his ministry in his sermons. And that is what we're looking for. To take the story from the Bible and bring it into the modern day. Prodigal Son, Good Samaritan, some of the other ones you guys are doing. Tell them so that they have the most impact with your hearer today. As I mentioned in an earlier video, Samaritan does not have the flavor. We're talking about the Good Samaritan. Samaritan does not have the flavor for us here in America as it did for Jews. But there are others. There are other peoples. There are other descriptions of people that do indeed have the fire and the flare and stir up the emotions like Samaritan would to the audience that Jesus was speaking to. Now, the important thing to remember is that you must stick close and clean to the story in your retelling. All right. I think that's it. So that's kind of an example. If you want to look up more of Dr. Craddock's stories, again, you can check him out online. But yeah, that's the kind of thing we're looking for in this. And if you do a PowerPoint presentation, obviously we're wanting you to retell the story, but then also situate the story in its initial historical context and show us that you understand. Because the only way really to pull it into the present day is to show that you understand the import of what Jesus was trying to say to his first century audience. Okay? I hope this helps. By the way, this is important. These are due on the second day of week 7. All right, so that's Tuesday. Tuesday by midnight. Not next week, but the week after. So a week from this coming Tuesday, these need to be in, okay? The reason for that is that'll give you guys time to interact with each other in your responses to one another. And those, of course, will be due by the end of the course. I'll have more to say about week 7. I don't want you to, oh my gosh. But just was responding to a student's inquiry about this. Again, I hope this helps. And I'm looking forward to reading and seeing your stuff. If you have any questions at all about this, if this video raises more questions, shoot them my way, and I'll be glad to work with you in any way I can, okay? God bless you all. Keep going. You can do it. Bye-bye.